Shining! Good morning, everyone. So, this time I'll be going to have my further explanations about our topic, statutory construction. So, first and foremost, disregard nyo na tong bangus ko and my red lipstick. Pinaghandaan ko to just for you guys. Anyway, let's start. Some of the questions na na-receive ko is to differentiate extrinsic and intrinsic aids. Give more examples about intrinsic and extrinsic aids. Tapos, difference between law and statutes. And generally, merong gusto ipa-explain ang chapter 3 onwards. So, when I read the PDF, kayang-kaya lang din naman talaga maintindihan ng chapter 1 and 2. So, hindi ko na i-explain further ha, kasi mostly ang content ng chapter 1 and 2 are definitions lang. Definitions sa statutory construction, the process on how a bill becomes a law. So, hopefully, naintindihan niyo na yun. Kayang-kaya lang siya without any explanation. So, I'm going to proceed with Chapter 3, the basic guidelines in the construction and interpretation of laws. Anyway, the difference between law and statutes is that law talks about the general or the entirety of such rule, while the statute is the written law. So meaning, when it is already approved, that bill is considered statute when it is already approved. And generally, ang tawag sa mga statutes are laws. So, hopefully, na-clarify na yan. Okay, so legislative intent in Chapter 3. Please follow na lang using your PDF na meron sa inyo. The object of all interpretation and construction of statutes is to ascertain the meaning and intentions of the legislature to the end that the same may be enforced. Legislative intent is determined principally from the language of the statute. Legislative intent, it's because, diba, originally, sa legislative branch, nag-uumpisa ang process, ang paggawa ng law. So, therefore, the intent or the purpose of law must be clarified dito pa lang daan na area. So, legislative intent talks about the purpose of the law. Verba legis, if the language of the statute is plain and free from ambiguity and express a single definite and sensible meaning, the meaning is conclusively presumed to be the meaning which the legislature intended to convey. Verba legis meaning plain meaning rule. Walang ambiguity, meaning walang pagkakalito. The meaning of the law is very clear and easy to understand. Next, statutes as a whole. A cardinal rule in statutory construction is that legislative intent must be ascertained from a consideration of the statute as a whole and not merely a particular provision. A word or phrase might easily convey a meaning which is different from the one actually intended. A statute should be construed as a whole because it is not to be presumed that legislature has used any useless words, and because it is dangerous practice to base the construction upon only a part of it, since one portion may be qualified by other portion. Statutes as a whole, meaning ang pag-understand or pag-follow natin sa certain law is based on its entirety, hindi na by part. So kung ano yung content or ano yung meaning ng law as a whole, ganun dapat natin siya i-understand. Next, spirit and purpose of the law. When the interpretation of a statute according to the exact and literal import of its words should lead to absurd and mischievous consequences, or would worth or contravene the manifest purpose of the legislature in its enactment, it should be construed according to its spirit and reason regarding or modifying so far as may be necessary. Ito, if ang statute is unclear, kumbaga. So, if it's unreasonable, ang babasehan natin nun is the original, the spirit, kumbaga, the law mismo. Kung ano yung content, ano yung napapaloob doon sa law, yun ang basehan natin, especially if it is unclear or very hard to understand. Next, when the reason of the law ceases, the law itself ceases. Ano yon? Ibig sabihin, if ang law daw nag-end, let's say, that law is not useful anymore, then the law itself ceases. Wala na siyang gamit kasi nga nag-end na siya. Doctrine of necessary implications, what is implied in a statute, is as much a part thereof as that which is expressed. Next, casus omissus, meaning case omitted. When a statute makes specific provisions in regard to several enumerated cases or objects, but omits to make any provisions for a case or object which is analogous to those enumerated or which stands upon the same reason and is therefore within the general scope of the statute, and it appears that such case or object was omitted by inadvertence or because it was overlooked or unforeseen, it is called casus omissus. Such omissions or defects cannot be supplied by the courts. Meaning, if there is such part of the law daw na disregard or na-omit, kumbaga natanggal as part of the law, pero unintentional, meaning hindi siya sinasadya or na-overlook lang siya, unforeseen lang siya, that is called casus omissus. So, case omitted. Wherein, ang court is hindi nila pwedeng i-question yung pagkatanggal nun. It's because it's unintentional. Next, stare decisis. To stand by things decided. It is a doctrine that when court has once laid down a principle and apply it to all future cases where facts are substantially the same regardless of whether the parties and properties are the same. Stare decisis follow past precedents and do not disturb what has been settled. Matters already decided on the merits cannot be relitigated again and again. Ibig sabihin sa stare decisis is things has already decided. Fixed na siya, firm na yung decision with regards sa certain situation. So if ever man na may mag-come up na other situation, hindi na pwede baguhin yung situation under stare decisis. It's because decided na siya na situation of a specific statute. Hindi pwede na yung certain situation mag-adjust because of the changes. But since it is already decided, meaning fixed na siya, firm na siya, and hindi na siya pwede baguhin. Dinig niyo yung tawa nila? Next, okay, so that is the chapter 3. Let's proceed with chapter 4. Construction and interpretation of words and phrases.